Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Fine. Good place.
Yeah.
Please, can you make a short presentation about your background before becoming a composer?
Yes, sure. I am a film and television composer, born and brought up in London, UK,
Mhm.
and I learned various musical instruments as a child and a teenager. I learned violin and the piano and the sitar and the tablas and various Indian ethnic instruments. Being brought up in the UK, sort of British Asian background, and I have a degree in mathematics
Yeah.
and and following that I went to the National Film and Television School in the UK to study sound for film. And so I got work. I started off in the industry as a sound designer on feature films, and then I broke away from that, working as part of big teams on big movies. And then I got work as an assistant music engineer, working for Peter Gabriel at Real World Studios in the UK, and that for me because I was very much into technology and I was a little bit of a gamer as a teenager. I played Space Invaders
Nice.
when I was really young, and I got work. My first job away from music engineering in recording studios and as a sound designer, I got work working in video games actually. Um, Worked on Sheep for PlayStation 1, I think it was, and Microsoft Flight Simulator and Pro Pinball and World Cup Monopoly and a few little games like that. And then my career took a left turn, and I ended up writing music for television
Yeah.
and then getting into films as well. So that's what I've been doing for the majority of my career. And I suddenly got asked to get back into video games in a big way a few years ago when I scored Telling Lies for Sam Barlow. And that then led on to Immortality, which came out last year. And I think he approached me because it's kind of a hybrid between non-linear game playing and film and television, because it's all full motion video with actors and there's no CGI animation or graphics at all. So that was my entry back into video games, and it's a very sort of experimental score that I really enjoyed working with Sam on. And then I got offered Call of Duty.
Yeah.
So that's kind of roughly my background.
So, what can you tell us about your musical work on Call of Duty Modern Warfare Season 2?
Yes, so I mean, so Call of Duty, it's been on my radar as this iconic video game for many years, and so to be invited to join the family of amazing composers that have worked on it before was really exciting to me and quite daunting. But we had an interesting approach for this. I mean, I'm having to take on the legacy of the music scored for the game in the past, because the main Modern Warfare game score is very production heavy in the use of mangled synthesizers and tough, hard grooves and live percussion blended with electronic drums and a lot of atmospherics. So for season three, I was very inspired by this production approach, but we took it one stage further. The original games, to make it distinctive, we pulled back on some of the very treated sounds that you hear in the main game score. And even though I'm using those techniques and, it's very electronic and synth heavy, we wanted to hear the rawness of the acoustic instruments with a bit more clarity. So you have more emotion in the music this time. So, the team, they wanted, the brief was they wanted to hear some of the more acoustic melodic elements in a more pure way, as opposed to making it all sound very, very electronic. We've got two characters, um, Alejandro and Valeria.
Mhm.
And Alejandro is from the Mexican Special Forces, and Valeria is the leader of this powerful international trafficking organization. So I was very inspired by the Mexican location of the game, but I wanted to bring in sounds that were inspired by the region, but not use traditional Mexican instruments. I mean, if I, otherwise we'd end up with it sounding like a mariachi band, which we don't want to do. so, so for Alejandro, I discovered this amazing instrument called the Halldorophone.
Mhm.
It's a hybrid electro-acoustic bowed stringed instrument that works with sympathetic drone strings and feedback. So each string has a dedicated pickup and it produces this cello type sound, which is quite unique. And for me, it evoked this very dark, Moorish quality to it, which connects me to the Spanish roots, which are then connected to Mexico. So that was very interesting. And I brought in these amazing guys that live in Greece, and they have this very rare instrument. You may have heard it on the score for Joker by Hilda Gudnadottir, which won the Oscar a few years ago. So that was a great sound too that I wanted to use on for the first time on this score. And then for Valeria, um, I used this ethnic flute, which is actually I was inspired by the sound of a fula flute from West Africa. I mean, you find flutes in Mexican music, but I wanted to create something a little bit more edgy and gritty and distorted. And because Valeria's theme evokes deception and power and corruption, so it lent it, and also we wanted to keep the sonic sounds very different between the two characters. Valeria using flutes and Alejandro using a bowed instrument. So that was quite, once we found those sound worlds for both of them, everything fell into place. And then I recorded some strings, but I worked with the London Contemporary Orchestra, who I've worked with a few times before, and they're fantastic because they're used to working in a very experimental way. And so I brought them, um, we recorded at Masterchord Studios here in London. I had five cellos and three double basses, which created for a very deep, low, sonorous, dark sound. So, it's no violins, no violas, just cellos and double basses. And uh, though all the melodic themes and ideas were written before the session, when we got to the recording session, we recorded it note for note, but we allowed for some of the magic to happen, where we would do some semi improvised takes during the recording session. We'd experiment with different playing techniques and extended string techniques so that, like, for example, the cellos are playing very close to the bridge, where it gives you a very dry, edgy sound, and that lent itself to the experience of the playing. So those were the live instruments that I used in the score.
Nice. What were the main difficulties that you have met during your work on these video games?
Difficulties. That's a
Yes.
really interesting question.
Thank you.
I think that's a challenging question. I mean, I loved working on it, so there wasn't anything really challenging about it. But I think the tough thing, one issue was that one challenge was having heard the music from the main game, we were thinking, how can we make this different from
Mhm.
and take it one step further, but still maintain familiarity with what the gamers are used to working with. So that was interesting, and also dealing with the instruments. For example, the Halldorophone is a instrument that's very difficult to control
Yeah.
sonically. You know, when you play something, you can't really. It's like playing a monster of an instrument. It's very the strings are do their own thing because you've got all these sympathetic drone strings playing. So manipulating the instrument was and controlling it to play what I wanted to play was interesting, was challenging. So we just gave up. We just said, okay, let's do what the instrument wants to do, and it's like it had its own life. So that was interesting, working with the musicians remotely as well, with the guys in Greece, and then my flautist Sandro Friedrich playing in Switzerland. He's got a lot of experience playing on video games, and he has something like 800 flutes. So we experimented a lot and tried, well, what is the sound for Valeria? That was a cool challenge to have. And Also, I mean, we leaned very heavily on the contrast between distressed sounds and clear organic elements. So balancing it in the mix was challenge. We wrote, myself and my team, we wrote the tracks
Mhm.
and with all the synthesizers, and then I gave it to the musicians, the flute and the Halldorophone, to record a whole bunch of stuff. And again, with the strings, we did so much recording and then bringing it back into the studio where we then rearranged the music to give space to all these amazing live elements that we recorded. So trying to choose what to put in, how to arrange it afterwards was really challenging because we had so much material. We just wanted to put everything in, but we couldn't. We had to make space for it. And then, of course, grooves, rhythms, and percussion. That was fun because we wanted it to be a bit more unpredictable. And so we'd have unusual, different rhythmic meters where we're not always driven by percussion, but um, the energy and the structure of each piece is designed to make you feel totally immersed inside what the character is feeling. There are lots of shifts and mood changes and pauses and abrupt changes in the sound palette. So that was quite a challenge to deal with, the wealth of material and how to edit it down and arrange it into uh, this hyper um, realistic experience for the gamer.
Thank you. Do you play since a long time to video games and on which console? What do you like as a player?
What do I like as a player? I really enjoy multi sort of really sophisticated um, narrative storytelling in games. And I'm also a fan of beautiful, beautiful games as well, like Abu and Journey, and it's just inspiring artwork. Um, and I mean, I'm not a huge gamer, I must admit, but I do like, I've really cherished working with Sam Barlow on his, because he's created a subgenre in its own right. We've devised our own techniques for storytelling. So characters and storytelling are something that I can dig into in games because that's my history when it comes to scoring film and TV. I'm immersed in the story and narrative and visuals. I'm very inspired by visuals. If you put visuals in front of me and pictures, I know what to do. So that informs me in a different way. So I'm very inspired by visual artwork and beautiful images, as well as storytelling.
How do you collaborate with creators, producers, and other members of this video games crew to ensure your music and sound design aligns with these video games?
Sorry, can you say the
Yeah,
second
sorry.
part?
How do you collaborate with creators, producer, and other member of this video games crew to ensure your music and sound design aligns with their vision?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I mean, with Sam Barlow, with Immortality and Telling Lies, I would, I mean, and I'm scoring a game at the moment for EA Originals,
Mhm,
Electronic Arts, and so I've been working on that for 2 years. I mean, that's a big difference between scoring for film and TV, where even if I'm working on a big project for film and TV, I'm having to work under a lot of time pressure and tight deadlines.
mhm,
Whereas with games, I have that luxury of having a year or 2, 3 years, 4 years even to work on the music. And that I really, really enjoy. So with Sam, I don't see any of the visuals. I got a
mhm,
script of
okay,
that was over 400 pages long,
mhm,
and absorbing the script and the story and getting into the world, and I love getting into sort of world building, sound, create unique sound palettes. But we decided on those games, we establish after many, many hours of dialogue and meetings and conversations of the concept, creating a unique concept. What are the requirements of the game? We have these conversations about characters, about the locations, the all sorts of things connected to the story, and then I'll go away and write ideas. I'll create a Spotify mood board or playlist, and we'll share musical ideas and thoughts. I'll write sketches, send them to the director, the development team, and get feedback from them. And then I will, with my mock-ups, I will then create the pieces,
mhm,
and work with the audio director very closely, and or the music supervisor, the music director, and then find out, get all the requirements, and then create all the stems and layers and make it as modular as possible. And then they'll implement it into the game.
mhm,
They'll do tests. We'll have milestones. The game I'm on at the moment, I have a weekly deadlines. So I
mhm.
have to have a piece of music written every week. So it's quite pressured, but
Yeah.
at the same time it's spread out over a long period of time. So we're constantly going backwards and forwards. Sometimes the music may not work. I'll have to make changes to it, but I love working with visual artists. With I work closely with narrative, or with the audio director to make sure that the music is really working successfully within the, in the way that it's implemented. And then I'll record live elements afterwards. So I'll record with an orchestra or soloist musicians, which I'm planning at the moment on my next game. And like we did that with Call of Duty. And then I will then mix the music and re-stem it and layer, and fill all the technical requirements. So it's quite a long, involved process. It's much more technical than scoring for film and TV in some ways, because it's the big challenge is to make the music sound fluid and flowing, so that it doesn't sound as though you're hearing the clunky, chunks. That's the challenge with video games, where, the music has to evolve with the player constantly. So we don't want to hear that repetition so much. So we're always creating, new ways of trying to create that sort of keep the flow interesting.
What is for you the main duty of a good composer?
Well, the most important thing I think
Yes.
for a composer is, when I'm collaborating, whether it's a
Mhm,
film, a TV, or a video game, is to serve the vision of the director,
yeah.
and or the development, or the head of the studio, the designer. But also they're employing me. I have to serve the film, or serve the needs of the game.
mm,
But as a composer, they've employed me because they want me to bring something of my history and my creativity. So it's finding a balance between, and that's what I love about what I do. It's a true collaboration
yeah.
of ideas and experimentation, where we'll try something out. If it doesn't work, we'll try other things. There are many ways of climbing the same mountain. So, I have to serve the story and serve the needs of the team, but also inject my own musical and creative identity within the music at the same time. So it's like a perfect fusion of those elements.
Which of your projects are you the most proud and why?
Oh, well, all my current,
Yeah,
my favorite project is always my most current project.
nice, nice.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I always, yeah, it's whatever I'm working on at that moment.
Well said. Which impact has the mathematics on your musical creations?
Which what, sorry?
Which impacts have the mathematics on your creation musical?
Ah, well, I always loved the beauty of numbers. There's you find numbers everywhere in life, in nature, the universe, and so um, you find it in the Fibonacci sequence,
Yeah.
in the shape of the constellations, the shape of the snails, mollusks and leaves and trees. So there's this. I really find the combination of science and
Mm.
technology and maths and the balance with creativity and music really interesting. But on a more practical level, I studied the tablas, Indian percussion, as a child,
Mm.
and there's a lot of number counting and a lot of rhythmic percussion rhythms, which is very sort of mathematical. I have a very strong connection. So I've always, and I'm really into technology. So I've always had a love of, numbers and maths and technical sort of computer programming. I studied programming as well as part of my degree. So there's a great symbiosis between numbers and music.
How has technology impacted your work as a composer and sound designer?
Well, if it wasn't for technology, I wouldn't be able to compose. I wouldn't be a composer today.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm not, even though I write for orchestras and symphonic music to synths and electronics
Mhm.
and every combination of that, I use technology to get my ideas down. I mean, even though I'm playing every single note within the with the keyboard and a computer, I'm still playing every single instrument and creating mock-ups and that's something that I I think it's very difficult to be a composer for film and TV and games now without embracing technology, because you have to demonstrate your music to directors and games teams, and you can't do that unless you use technology to record and manipulate and treat and edit and so on. So yeah, yeah, and also the days of, I mean it's yeah, I mean I started writing about 25 years ago,
Yeah.
when I was very young, and so yeah, if it wasn't, and I don't, yeah, if it wasn't for technology, I wouldn't be a composer.
Nice. Where have you recorded this score?
So the Halldorophone was recorded in Greece.
Okay.
The flutes were recorded in Switzerland,
Okay. Nice.
and the strings were recorded in at Masterchord Studios here in London.
Okay.
So it's quite a European recorded score.
What advice you would give to someone who is interested in pursuing a career in the music and sound design for film and television and video games?
Well, I mean, for me, diversity is very important.
Yeah.
Being I've tended not to specialize too much, and that's one of my strengths. I like to work on I like to work on lots of different projects. Um, so I think being able to embrace technology is very important. You know, as well as having musical skills and music theory, technology is really important. But also, I think being able to I talk the language of film and storytelling. You know, when I'm working with people, I don't. When you have to be very good at communicating and being able to translate the requirements of the film director or the games designer into music. So having a broad life, sort of opening yourself up to all sorts of different creative influences is important. You know, being very open-minded, you know, embracing technology and music theory, being on top of all of that, but also being able to network with people. That's super important because you can be the, you know, I mean, you can be the next Mozart, but if
Mhm.
nobody knows about you, you'll never get the work, you know, and be able to work on interesting projects. So you have to put yourself out there and learn how to I hate using the word sell yourself, but you do have to just be interested in people, connect with other human beings, you know, and you know, being going to um, uh, games conferences. You know, there's GDC and there is so many others in the UK. We have Develop coming up in a few months, and so going to games conferences and festivals and connecting with doing game jams, connecting with people on social media in the
Mhm.
same world as you, going to university, connecting with other composers as well and other people in the music industry, but also in the games. You know, Twitter is great for games, so connecting with other developers as much as you can, working on small indie games, and just being a collaborator. This is not. It's not a field where um, it's the most important thing is to be a collaborator, to be able to communicate with other people. It's not, you can't, you have to sort of, it's always a compromise because, you can't do what you want all the time. So you have to be able to take criticism and have a thick skin. That's really important as well, because you're there to serve the game.
And my last question, can you talk please a little about your upcoming projects that you are currently working on?
Well, in gaming, I'm working on a game for Electronic Arts, EA Originals,
Yeah.
um, which I'm very, very excited about because it pushes me into an area that I've never worked in before, stylistically. But of course, I can't say very much about that.
Yeah.
But I'm also working on quite a few film and TV projects at the
Hmm?
moment. A big series for Disney Plus, and
Yes.
quite a few other projects for Netflix and Apple TV, and some films coming out later this year.
Yeah.
Lots of TV shows. So yeah, there's quite a lot coming out soon.
Thank you very much for this interview. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Can
Thank
you?
you.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.